Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Liverpool.com podcast. I think this must be about number 4 or 5 right now. Liverpool.com is still going strong. Liverpool Football Club are still the champions of England, Europe, and the world, as Jagan Klopp likes to remind us all. With me today are Morgan and Ollie Connolly. How are we, gentlemen?
Doing great.
Excellent, thank you.
Lovely background there, Dan.
Oh, the nude's so grey. I thought I'd change it up a bit for you, Chris. You know, you get me upstairs a lot of the time. So now you've got me to the kitchen. So yeah, you know somewhere tomorrow, mate. Could be the bathroom, probably not. Could be outside. Never know your luck.
Keep me on my toes. Obviously I haven't been on the past couple, but I've been listening. I've been taking notes. I do have something to raise with you, Ollie. While I appreciate the idea of trying to get me the nickname the Boss Man, it gives me a feeling of being like a WWE wrestler from the 1980s,
which was the intent. So it's going well.
Yeah, just a pair of, like, sort of dark sunglasses on, nightstick in my hand, walk slam everybody. I think over the course of the next couple of weeks we'll try and sort out some nicknames for everybody. But I don't want to. I think the Boss Man feels very Orwellian. You know what I mean? I don't want to be. I don't want to be this sort of presence of thing over everybody. I think I sound too daunting.
Can we go back quickly to the champions of England, Europe, and the world thing? Can we touch quickly on this controversy about pictures with trophies? Can we do that right now?
Yeah, let's.
Because it's the single most baffling thing I've ever seen anyone ever get upset about. Which, for the people, is the Liverpool players taking pictures with all trophies in one sitting, with having been knocked out of this year's Champions League by Atletico Madrid, and other fan bases getting upset that they would dare take pictures with all 4 trophies at once. I just do not understand how, like, that's the trophy, wasn't it?
It's like saying you can only have pictures with one of your kids because you haven't given birth to the other one previously. I don't understand it. Also, the Super Cup and the World Club Cup are because they won Champions League. It's all part of one big story. And then also, let's face it, Liverpool are still champions of Europe until that trophy. They haven't broken into somebody else's trophy room and taken the trophy. They are in possession of that trophy.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how they've managed to take the pictures, is because the trophy is theirs at the moment. They have to hand it back when the season's over, when the is given to whoever, probably Atalanta.
And it would be strange. I hope it would be strange if like Minamino had come in and he was like, lapping it up with the trophy like he'd won it, but he hasn't. It's the exact same group.
Yeah, the hilarious thing is that, like, 6 months ago, they were advertising getting your picture with the FA Cup, the league title, and the European Cup outside Old Trafford. Literally, like it was a scarf all set up outside Stretford End. Do you want your picture with the FA Cup, the European Cup, and the Premier League? Oh yeah, go ahead, you're okay. But the minute we do it, to be fair, look, what I would say, just the devil's advocate, is that if someone else doing it, we would probably scoff, because that's just the nature of the beast, isn't it? So, yeah, I'm fine with it. That's our trophy anyway. After the 5th time we won it, the European, we've got to keep it.
Yeah, maybe it should just be those with every picture, just the one that Liverpool have. Liverpool have this one. There's only Bayern, Barca, Real Madrid, and AC Milan who have one. Why not?
Except that's it. Yeah.
Just out of interest, is there a club just really, we are going to try and keep this quite tight this week, but who sort of odds on to get the trophy Liverpool won in Madrid? Have you seen what I mean, in terms of who's going to become who's on, like, sort of 4 Champions League wins and would therefore kind of take the trophy that Origi held in Madrid? He's got looks.
How Madrid to get another one? They've got to be like one away to getting another one, right?
Let's have a little look. Where are we? Let's have a little look. Madrid are on 13, so it's possible.
It's going to be Madrid, yeah.
It's Ajax are on 4. And
what about Benfica?
Inter Milan and Man United are on 3. So
I really get it.
That wouldn't be very nice. I don't think Liverpool have the one in April. Maybe they do. Maybe we'll look into that. If anybody knows, please send us a tweet. Basically, the cup that resides in Liverpool's trophy room. Who else has touched that cup?
Madrid must have taken the 08 one, right?
Yeah, they probably have. Ultimately, Liverpool have one cup that's theirs, and they've got another cup that's theirs right now, and they can basically, if they wanted to, basically wear one on their head and wear one on the feet, they could do. It's absolutely fine. And to Dan's point, I completely agree with what you're saying, Dan. But ultimately, it's better to be on this side of the argument than the other because. So Liverpool, our champions, are absolutely everything that is line we are going with, and because of that, we decided to earlier this week on Liverpool.com write our end of season awards. I suppose we can call it our inaugural Liverpool.com awards, and we basically came up with Ollie came up with a whole load of categories. It's a bit like the Oscars, really. Some of them were quite serious, some of them were not so serious. So I thought what we would do today is go through all those categories. We want you involved as well, so please go send us a tweet, send us a message. Just let us know exactly why we are A, talking absolute sense, or B, chatting complete wham. And what we also did on our social media channel, Liverpool _ was put every single category out as a poll. So not only will we be talking about our own sorts of choices, but we'll sort of have a look at what's, let's say, what's won. As I'm talking, there's 49 minutes left on some of these, so we could actually have sort of a shift in real time. So that'll be quite interesting. But going to press, this is sort of where the results are at. So we'll start first and foremost with the biggest moments. Ollie, do you want to kick off because you went for Alisson to Salah?
Yeah, I think that the moment things coalesced, the first time with the chant of we're gonna win and all that stuff turned around the field. So that to me was the I think you could see it in the celebration and in Salah's face. The pure joy, almost as anger as like this is happening now, which is almost unlike him usually to show that degree of stuff. He's actually calm. Ordinarily, so that I think that was like the roof coming off the place, like this is happening. I do think deep down I probably would still say Mane at Villa, and I think that's where kind of the conventional wisdom I think have kind of settled on that being the moment where they showed that extra something that champions usually have, that stuff we've talked about many a time of the champions winning muggily on road. I think that was the game where it was like this team has that thing that it hasn't quite had before. It did the year before, really. It was such an anomaly that, the 18-19 season. So I think Villa or United, and I settled for that United one.
And you have something a little bit different. You went for Trent, the King Power, Boxing Day.
Yeah. For me, that was kind of the quietly before. Obviously, I wasn't doing the whole winning the league in Anfield until United, as Ollie references, but for me, that was when I quietly said to myself, and I think, if I'm being honest, I think the rest of the country said to themselves, pack this up, it's done. I just thought it was such a statement moment of these are by far and away head and shoulders above everyone, and more importantly, they are by far and away uncatchable. That game was billed as the game where it was almost the beginning of the end. We come back from Qatar, and it was almost given some quote that Leicester were going to get something from the game because they were still being talked about as a potential title rival, but also they didn't have this trip to deal with. So not only play that we did, but to sort of score that goal, the whole night just was sort of flush with a sense of statement, with a sense of status, and it just topped off with that goal. It's everything about it, the goal, the celebration, the meaning of it. It just screamed to me that this was a Liverpool team that knew its own destiny and was sort of unstoppable in reaching it.
I think the Boxing Night celebration afterwards. So we went. It was a very long day for us. We got picked up on the wheel. We went to a non-league game for the 3 o'clock kickoff. Because it was, I think it was at 7:45 kickoff on Boxing Night, an 8 p.m. kickoff maybe.
It was around that,
yeah. So we went to Leamington Spa versus Gloucester City, which was incredible. They did pot noodles for the quid. It was absolutely unbelievable. Then we went to Leicester, had a curry, and I remember the nerves. Like there was genuine nerves of you just come back from Qatar. You know, it's Brendan Rodgers. I think you've got to remind yourself of this narrative. Like we were all in the curry house beforehand, sort of slightly concerned, and then you watch that unfold. You get back in the car, you drive back, and then you could just tell the celebration. Like we stayed out quite late that night because it was Boxing Night, and obviously it's what you do. But you could that was the title celebration in a weird way. There was a few of them around the season. But that one, you could just tell the vibe in town and sort of the conversations you were having with people, and you'd sort of be meeting up with people afterwards in this pub or that pub, and everyone was saying the same thing, that it was done. And I don't think anyone deep down believed it, sort of as in they didn't want to say it out loud properly, but I think everybody knew at that point that this team is actually a serious football team. There's no Man City in January lurking in that sense. Liverpool had a genuine chance there to not only sort of build that gap but also accelerate away, and that's exactly what they did. Ollie, you mentioned the Mane there as well. I just feel like I just think that is a sliding doors moment. That's the one I went for, just because there was at one point where you're looking at the table and saying it's 6 points and it's 3 points, and City are coming to Anfield next week, and Guardiola can be like dog with a bone, doesn't even begin to describe it. So I think that was a huge one. In terms of what I've said the G word. In terms of the Twitter users voted for, it was very, very tight between Mane versus Villa and Alisson to Salah against Man United. Mane versus Villa only just hold out, but I do think Trent versus Leicester's probably thinking back to that night and that day. I think it was maybe more the game than the moment, and that's why people haven't voted for it. Yeah, but that was huge as well. So we'll also move on to best goal, and there were a hell of a lot that we could have done here. I'll just throw mine in very quickly. It came bottom of the poll on Twitter. I'm absolutely fine with that. Don't mind dying on this hill. Shaqiri against Everton, just simply crossfield pass. Mane controlling it with the outside of his heel, waiting. Great run by Shaqiri. Quite a nice finish on the run as well. I just think it's probably one of the real underrated goals of Liverpool's campaign. But it's fine. Only 8.2% wanted that, and that's absolutely fine. I'm happy here. But Fabinho versus Man City was the big winner with 73.5%. So take it away.
That for me, I ordinarily would go for something that either sums up a team, or it feels like a more of a defining moment, or is like this is the epitome of this team where they've just ascended to a level people can't live with them. Even the fifth against Chelsea, the final one before the title lift, is just like they live on a different plane of existence to the rest of the Premier League. But there are some times where you just got to pick a thing out where, with a word you can't say on a podcast, where it's picked up and put in the top for him. God knows how far. And that, to me, that Fabinho moment, and again, just the eruption of that moment was something special. There's also an amazing shot in that goal when you go back and rewatch it. The dichotomy between Mane not being bothered and Fabinho rocketing up into the air with short delight is fabulous. So people should go and check that out.
I'm not having Bravo for that goal.
Yeah, it's a top corner, but I'm it's about halfway up, I think.
It's good that he's adding that to his locker, though. I mean, this is sort of a wider point, I think, but I think Liverpool, and obviously we'll have to look into numbers and, underprepared as usual, but it feels like Liverpool really made a real good effort to score different types of goals from outside the area. Obviously, they had a lot from Mohamed Salah in 17-18. But it feels like, Mane, last day of the season, was one from the edge of the area, if you will. But Fabinho obviously scores 2 rockets. I think Oxlade-Chamberlain scores the opener against Southampton from long range. Maybe Kayser against Chelsea. It feels like that's definitely something they've added to their arsenal.
Yeah, the City one as well is like, you do have this thing of getting over on Guardiola, which is always delightful, where they talk about all this stuff about body shape and funneling of shots, and we out you defensively, where we're going to have our defenders to fit in such specific body positions that you have to only shoot it in this direction at this angle, and so that makes all the saves easier. And so to just have someone rip one past Bravo is kind of a delight.
Was a little bit different. So that was Bangadano Dordan. You went for Mohamed Salah against Newcastle, which was very much Roberto Firmino picking the lock.
It's one of the most outrageous pieces of skill I think we've ever seen at Anfield. But I've got a bit of a confession to make. The other shout I'll give is that it highlights just maybe how much we underrate Sadio Mane's goals. Because when I was thinking about this, when you think back to some of them, Southampton away, for example, they're absolutely ludicrous. The angles he finds, sort of the instinct he has in front of goal. But secondly, it's kind of, both of these first two choices of mine aren't really my first choice when I've sat and thought about it. And I think I can put probably my goal of the season and my moment of the season into one, which is Salah away at Salzburg. And Salzburg away is a great forgotten game for Liverpool. Mm. But when we talk about kind of things riding on a knife edge, Salzburg away for me was my chimpanzee out on my shoulder big time. That's the one for me where I thought we've given them the game of their lives. They're a really, really good side. They've given us a real test at Anfield. They're going to throw everything at us. And if we go out of the Champions League at the group stage after winning it the year before, will that do for us? And we go there and put on that performance. And Salah has a bit of a stinker all night and scores the hardest goal all night from a ridiculous angle with his right foot, if I'm correct in thinking. And that was, I actually got a bit emotional that night. I think I've said it before. I got a bit sort of overwhelmed with the whole mentality of this football team and just their sort of ability mentally to back themselves and to just put themselves in any situation and come out. So if I'm being honest, they're both sort of a bit of a Mickey for me. But that Firmino goal, that Salah goal, sorry, is all Roberto Firmino's doing.
I also like how I think it's Fabian Schär is sprawled over like he wants to be painted like one French girl. He's absolutely sprawled. He's absolutely sprawled.
We were in a bit of trouble that day as well, by the way.
Oh, they scored an absolute rocket. Adrian should do better, which will neatly move us on to you coming in a minute. But I think Adrian should do better. But at the same time, I think I think it restarts the game. I think Liverpool just as has been the case with Origi a couple of times. It just didn't seem to be clicking with him in the front three that afternoon. He gets injured, which obviously was unfortunate, but allows Firmino to come on and taps it off with that assist. But it was a fantastic. Can't call it a cameo. He was on for an hour, but it was a great introduction. Just a quick word for Salzburg as well. Wonderful city. Unbelievable city. I mean, got there in December was incredible. Christmas markets were open. They let you drink at the ground, which was a bad thing, especially when you had the 6 a.m. train to Innsbruck the morning after. But no, I really like Salzburg, and I feel like there's so many of these games that you forget and moments that you will forget because there's been so many of them, and Salzburg, is definitely up there. So best newcomer, I went Curtis Jones, which won the vote. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Nico Williams, nobody voted for him, but we wanted to give somebody else another shout. He came second, which means that both Ollie and Dan's shout of Adrian is last on 14.7%. I actually think that's really, really harsh, and I probably would. If we're sort of going by the ultimate definition of a newcomer, surely only Adrian, Sam Vandenberg, and Harvey Elliott are allowed, but. Evidently not, and he finished bottom. Is that a little bit of recency bias? Do you think, Dan? Is that basically the last thing anyone remembers him doing? Is knocking Liverpool out the Champions League to a degree?
Yeah, I think so. I think Joel wrote a really good piece on the fact that he basically played a quarter of the season at the start of it. And not only that, he went to some really difficult places like Sheffield United away, and I was quietly impressed with sort of him from set pieces and crosses. I thought he was surprisingly reassuring there. Distribution wasn't the best, but when
you watch him at West Ham, I always thought he was that type of keeper because he was Spanish.
Yeah, exactly. It was a funny one, but when you sort of, I think there's a little bit of bias in sort of who you're comparing him to as well, and that's unfair on anyone really at all in life. In every aspect of life, no one wants to be compared to Alisson Becker because they're going to come up short. So yeah, I think that from that point of view was a little bit harsh. I think ultimately he's played a fair amount of games in a season that Liverpool won the title for the first time in 30 years. So he could have lashed one into us every game for me, and if we won the title, he'd have still been the best newcomer because he's part of that side. So yeah, he's done a lot better than people remember. And don't get me wrong, sort of the gulf in level showed up at home to Atletico, but okay, fair enough, that's not his fault. And the other thing as well that I said, I think in my sort of plumping for him was he's clearly good for the environment in the dressing room, and he clearly sort of gets the pool ethos and contributes to that. And anyone who is doing that on a daily basis is as Klopp said, is just as important as people turning out every week for 90 minutes. So he's by far and away in a positive addition to us. And, we can only, without trying to be personal and be damning on anyone else, we can only maybe imagine what life would have looked like if Simon Mignolet would have played that amount of games this season.
I agree with that. Ollie, it feels like he is almost the ultimate forgotten man in this campaign, as Joel Rose and as Dan's just mentioned there. For the Premier League winning team to have a second choice keeper for a quarter of the season, and to stand up in the way he has. Yes, the Atletico game was really disappointing, and it felt like it came sort of, I can't remember if it was just before or just after the Chelsea game, which obviously was another really poor performance. But his overall body of work this season should probably be recognised and appreciated.
Yeah, I feel bad now because I kind of kneecapped him whilst giving him my vote in the piece, because I do think it's been objectively bad. I think the storyline is great. I actually think, and we'll go on to this in a bit, I guess, but it's worth rolling in now. I think it's one of the most exceptional pieces of man management you'll ever see from a manager, and fan expectation management from Jurgen Klopp. Just doing the Adrian interview, post-match interview, and the way he tried to stoke this encouragement around him at the start, so there wasn't this just the noise in the crowd you have. No one trusts the goalkeeper, and it is insidious amongst defenders, and we've all seen it. We've seen it with Mignolet, you've seen it with Karius. Him trying to control that, understanding that at some point Alisson's going to ride on the white horse, so it will be okay, is pretty astonishing. You look at the nerdy metrics, and goalkeeper metrics always a bit funky, but he has been terrible. And not just terrible by the standards compared to Alisson, compared to what he should be doing based on where he's been, positioning, shot type, what have you. He's been 29th in the Premier League in the nerdiest of metrics out of 31 qualified goalkeepers. So just bad. And yet, like Dan said, there's the cultural stuff which you cannot put a price on. And then there's just the confidence in him. I do think it got shakier as the season went along. And I think we've talked about before where game plans for them, whether spoken, unspoken, felt like they really felt early in the season they had to get the throat just in case something happened. But there was definitely more confidence within the crowd, at least early on, and then within Van Dijk and Matip at the time, than there would have been, I think, had Karius or Mignolet been back there. And you can't really, put a price on that. And like you said, the fact he got them through such a chunk of the season shouldn't be forgotten when the story is told 10, 15 years down the line.
I think even though he was bad and sort of in those metrics, I think being 29th out of 31st, if you're a number 2 for Liverpool, is okay. I think the issue is when you're number 31 out of 31. And I know that sounds really down with faint praise, but I think it's just don't be bad enough to cost Liverpool points. Yes. And ultimately, our thoughts on that Atletico game. I actually think Adrian's mistakes let the front three off a hell of a lot that night, because I feel like Liverpool created enough clear-cut opportunities to win that 4-0 in normal time. But nobody talks about the missed opportunities. They talk about Adrian. But ultimately, when it's a knockout game in that case, or as Chelsea was, it can bite you on the backside. What he managed in those 8-9 games was just spread the badness in a good way. He messes up against Hampton and concentrated the Ings, but they were 2-1. He maybe probably should have done better for the Kante goal, but they win 2-1, and it's just about managing those moments, and I think he did that really well. This might put Curtis Jones down again. He's not a newcomer per se. Obviously, he made this breakthrough this season, and even then, he only really made his breakthrough post-lockdown, post-title. You could even argue, he only makes his first league start against Aston Villa when the title's already won. I just think the new for me is something really interesting. I feel like he could become something really different for Liverpool, and something that Liverpool's midfield have. I sort of called him a round-deuter, a space investigator, which is one of those really silly buzzwords that was doing the rounds around Thomas Muller. I'm not saying he's in Thomas Muller's sort of, class. But what I am saying is that he's a player who will pick up spaces, and I find that so much. Even that goal for Oxlade-Chamberlain against Chelsea, he's there. He's there in the box. He finds the space and he drives into it. That's how he scores his goal against Villa. That's how he's got his couple of chances against Burnley. He is somebody who drifts into space undetected. His movement's really interesting. And I think that's something that Liverpool don't actually have. I think someone like Oxlade-Chamberlain, he does something similar, but he's a steam train. You can see him coming. You know exactly what he's doing, and there's nothing you can do about it. Sometimes Curtis Jones is popping up in positions which you don't really expect them to. And I think that's really exciting for Liverpool. And I think that might give them another dimension in certain games. We're talking about the low block as well. So I'm really excited about Curtis Jones. I think the one thing Jones had to do, and I think I'm probably on record saying this last summer during the pre-season tour, because he had a couple of decent little cameos and he played well against, I think it was Sevilla, but there was no end product. And ultimately, I think when you're a young player, to establish yourself in this team, you need to bring something to the table that others can't. And if he was just going to be a cog, and that's no disrespect to someone like Wijnaldum or even, Henderson, Fabinho, he has to bring something that they can't in order to make that breakthrough. And I think what he's done is found that something. He's a tangible goal threat. He's a tangible sort of shot creator. And I think that bodes really well. He's probably the closest thing Liverpool have to a number 10 in midfield now, which is quite interesting, but can still obviously play deeper.
There's a great arrogance about his game, which I think is really important. I think had he been kind of in the early Klopp cycle, it might have been a bit iffier. There's no deference to the front three when he comes on the pitch, which for a player, it'd be really easy. You see this with Minamino a bit. Dan, you've spoken about this, where he is eager to do well, but he's really trying to fit in, whereas Curtis Jones is happy to pick the ball up and lash the ball over the bar from 30 yards out, having the pitch for 2 minutes. That is quite impressive in a young lad to have that degree of no, I'm good. I need to give the ball to you. I think that's interesting.
It's controlled arrogance as well. I think there's something that's interested me about Jones as well. Is that, and sort of Trent broke the mould, really, but I think we've all grown up with young Scouse players coming through and basically having a bit of that's the right way, but having a streak in them when they first come through. So Gerrard obviously gets sent off a couple of times before he's 21, I think. Carragher is similar. I don't know if he gets sent off.
I know what you mean, Chris. I know what you mean. He sort of doesn't look like he's kicked the ball out of City all of his life, and not in the greatest possible way. I think you can sort of, maybe you can put Trent in that as well, and maybe it's a sign of a developing footballer. But I think Rooney, Gerrard, Carragher, you could all sort of bookmark them as players who've, they've grown up on the streets of this city. They sort of know, they learn the hard way first, and then, the talent comes after. And Jones almost looks like you plucked him from an academy at Barcelona sometimes, just in terms of the way he positions himself, the way he's tactically aware sometimes on the pitch. He's constantly. I like the idea of sort of comparing him as someone who constantly looks for space, because you can see he does, and he's one of those sort of head on a pivot Fabregas type players who's also like constantly aware of what's around him. And I didn't see that in early days, and that's to be understood given his age and stuff like that. But he's really developed in that setup, you can see.
Absolutely. It's really interesting. I find it interesting that, I don't know if he's been booked yet. Sort of when, you remember when the likes of Flanagan and Randall and any sort of local lad coming through, just absolutely just used to boot people. So I think that's an interesting thing, sort of the way local lads are developing. You can see it to a little degree, maybe over in Manchester with Foden as well.
It's actually that's a fascinating. It's a fascinating point in terms of just the scousers of the team, whether it's been a local lad or not, and they talk about getting some scouts to the team. It has been about bite for some reason. Whereas the two scouts lads in the team, like Dan's saying, that these are a group of excellence lads. These are lads who've played in pro academies, their entire life. This is playing on, cobble streets. These guys are playing on 4G pitches throughout their development, and it kind of shows.
Yeah, definitely redefining what we're expecting from local players. Most shocking moments, I think we're going to basically hand it to Danny in the next 20 minutes.
Oh, God.
But first of all, we'll talk about the one that won. I don't think there's much to say about the two the two other than Dan's, but obviously OUM for football halted, and it won with 51% of the votes. Yeah, I mean, it's shocking. Like we really shouldn't sleep on the fact that there was a pandemic and Liverpool won the league in June, and then played out their victory lap parade in July to a bunch of empty seats. We will never ever forget. However, I blanked on this one, so I found it shocking the fact that Mo Salah had 16 shots in his last 4 games and didn't score a single goal, and essentially he finished the season on 19 goals. And I feel sorry for everybody next season because I think he might score 60. But yeah, ultimately my winner, even if it wasn't on Twitter, was Pep's meltdown. If you want to call it a meltdown. We've spoken a lot about Guardiola, sort of in private. We've mentioned them a little bit on this podcast. But Dan, Pep Guardiola is not all right, is he?
He is most certainly not all right. I have Pep Guardiola shoes, shall we say. And obviously, without going too deep and too personal, because I don't know the fella from Adam, and B, he's manager of Manchester City, it's very, very clear that Liverpool are seriously under his skin. And this was, for all it got dressed up as, this was actually the beginning of what, well, you can argue that his documentary where he's mentioned in Everton's or changing room is the beginning. But this is sort of a mark in the map of Pep Guardiola becoming increasingly obsessed only with Liverpool Football Club, the concept of Liverpool in the media. And he's fueled that. He's literally, we talk about Man City fans breaking into press boxes at Wembley when their own manager is adding such fire to such a narrative, then can you blame them, really? When City are exonerated from cash, he mentions Liverpool 3 times and tries to be cute and indirect about it. And if I have one problem with him, it's that he's still trying to come across as cool Pep. He's still trying to come across as, the sort of bohemian, worldly manager who has got everything under control, and he clearly hasn't. So just let it all out, Pep, like you did in November at Anfield, because by God, it all come out, mate. It all come out. And it was glorious for all to see. So, yeah, not much to say, really, other than he had a moment, and it's one that will go down in history as one of Anfield's most memorable.
That was a situation. I think it was a moment as well where the essence of Guardiola sort of ebbed away. Because as you say, I think he's always, and he still does to a degree, he has this character which is cool, suave, and I think that's partly a little sort of stereotypical because he's Catalonian and he dresses like a Zara mannequin, and it's that kind of thing. But there was always that little bit of needle with him anyway. Mourinho got it out from a fair bit when he was at Barcelona. But I think what we saw with Liverpool is basically, I'm not going to say the mass slip because I don't think he ever tried to. I don't think he's trying to sort of portray himself as anything. I think it's mainly how those on the outside have portrayed him. But what it showed is a deeply intense man who really does not like losing football games and doesn't like losing life. And I think when he went to Manchester City, I think he thought that, whether subconsciously or whatnot, once he eventually cracked it with that 100-point season, that the winning would just come, and it wasn't. And what we saw there in real time was a very visceral outpouring of emotion as the realization struck that this isn't happening, and it's nobody else's fault other than either the referees or God himself, because that's who he was crying to. I don't think I've ever seen an outpouring like that in all my years of watching football.
I think he has a real problem in that he can't hate Jagan Klopp. Like I genuinely think he would rather Liverpool would manage someone like Nyo. Because he could get that bandwagon going, and he could sort of manifest that displeasure that he has a lot more. Whereas, Jagan go total to over 90 minutes during a game, but as soon as that whistle's gone, he's back to being the most reasonable and sensible man in life, never mind football. And he'll basically say to you, "What are you getting worked up over? It's only a game." And at the same time, he's beating you. So how infuriating that is. This guy is telling you that it doesn't matter, it's just a game. And he's beating you, the most intense, the most labour-driven individual to the trade that is in their minds ever walked the earth. And this guy's just sort of turning up saying, well, yeah, it's good, isn't it, this? How easy is it? And you're saying, no, it's not. I wish I could hate you, but I can't. So I think he genuinely has that problem as well.
There's such an aspect to everything he does. There always has been, though. I think some of this is there's a communication flaw with him in England, massively, because he was always this character in Barcelona. It's what brought him down. The paranoia is what sunk him. The Mourinho, they didn't have a better team at Madrid. I mean, he just completely lost his mind and started making moves for Ibrahimovic. The Fabregas thing went sideways. He couldn't figure it out. The stress became too much. This is a guy who wasn't sleeping. He didn't know how to quite configure a 3-4-3 in training. This is a guy who cares on a level that you should not care. And I think there's almost that almost a theoretical, philosophical battle going on there of how much should you care. And I know it sounds almost a bit too deep or pretentious, but like Dan's saying with Klopp, there is a feeling with Klopp. I laugh about it all the time with you guys in our group chat and stuff about the volume of stuff that comes out about Klopp as though he's not aware of what's happening at the club sometimes. He'll go like, oh, are we doing that? Oh yeah, he talks about the grass to someone else. Like, he's not involved in every single thing day to day. Whereas for Guardiola, every single thing is under an intense and insane amount of detail, and it all flows from him. So there's all that is bottled up. When it goes wrong, it's all on him, and he has to try and find something to blame.
When Millie and Cash were vying for the number 1 jersey, like two ball men fighting over a comb, I suppose, and I know all about that. He basically succeeded the selection to John Alberg, because he was like, you're the one who's training these every day. He's also consult with him, of course, but could you imagine that? I mean, I might be wrong. I don't know the workings of Manchester City. I don't know if he does do that with his goalkeeper coaches, but it would be very off-brand if he did. Mm-hmm. It feels very. He is very controlling. I think the other thing as well about the twice, it became a meme, mm-hmm. And ultimately, sort of, does he care? But does football take Pep Guardiola seriously after that?
Ferguson, ever see Ferguson doing that? Have you ever seen anyone really top level lose their heads like that? I'm not sure I have, to be fair.
Wenger, when he stands in the stand at Old Trafford.
Yeah, Wenger, but again, that's starts
sort
with
of
the mind.
He was joking, but as you say, yeah, that's true as well. He was never seen the same way, was he?
No, and the other thing, just touching on your point there, is I'm not sure he's got the right people around him, and I include Arthill in that when he was there, because for nobody in Anfield on City staff to get a grip of him that day and say, "Sit down, sort your head out," I think that damaged him a lot more than his own act did. I think the fact that there was nobody on his own staff who got a grip of him, because he'd completely gone at that point and said, "Listen, you need to stop this. This is detrimental to this football club and this team. You're doing the way you're behaving." They sort of mimicked, and I just think, touching on both of your points there, I think if anything's showing you that he's sort of running a bit of a dictatorship there, a bit of an authoritarianism in terms of sort of who signs off on what, then I think that's a big hint. And that's Wenger's a classic example of that being a massive problem. I know somebody who was doing the whole I know somebody thing, but I know somebody who was sort of close to goings on at Arsenal, and this phrase was actually true. You could not change a light bulb in Highbury without running it past Arsene Wenger, literally. Like, because someone tried to change a light bulb and had to run it past Arsene Wenger, and that is massively problematic in so many ways. So yeah,
I think the final word on Guardiola, then we will move. Imagine you Raheem Sterling, Sergio Aguero, or Kevin De Bruyne, and you go into training the day after, and Guardiola's trying to give the whole, "Don't worry about that result, lads. We've got time to catch them." Exactly. You'd be looking at him going, "Are you joking?"
Yeah, exactly.
No, you're trying. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but he can just drop out all of his medals, which is like every championship but 2 ever. There's
just Bernardo Silva sitting in the corner going, "Yeah, he's right, lads. Yeah, believe in every word he says."
Yeah, he really. There is like a tortured genius element to him, and I think that everyone who works him kind of gets it, because there's no one who loves him. I think they all kind of understand, look, this guy gonna help me, but it's a job. There's no let's have a pint with Pep. It's like we come in, we do the work, we leave. Thank God we're leaving. He's only going to be here for 4 years. We'll win a bunch, and then we'll get Pellegrini back. We'll have a great time. There's that vibe to him.
What a pint that'd be, Jesus. You'd be texting under the table, wouldn't you? Asking someone to one ring. Just say my dog's sick or something. You know what I mean? Just get me out as soon as possible. Like, he sort of offers the best wine possible in the restaurants. And you just go, "I just want a pint. I'm fine, honestly." Making you swill it round your mouth, and just awful. That would have been a good category for this, sort of worst pint. But then he would have absolutely run away with that.
I don't know. That sounds like a great night out to me. So I'm going to keep quiet on that one, to be honest.
Best post-match interview. We'll touch upon this really quickly. The Chris Wilder one, I think you went for that, Dan. Simply, I think sort of it said a lot, didn't it, about Liverpool. I went for the Salah versus Palace again because I blanked out, because I think there's been so many good interviews. And Ollie, you were the one who said the Adrian. I'm not going to do the actual sort of elongation of the vowels, but the post Super Cup interview, that one was 61.7%. Just wanted to take this opportunity. Really, are we all in agreement that Chris Wilder is probably one of the soundest people in football?
Absolutely.
Top of the pint list there.
There's a good pint. He'd turn up in his shorts and it'd be absolutely fine. Most Roberto Firmino moments, which was quite an interesting one. Dan, you went for ending the drought or the Burnley tunnel eyes?
No, I went for the Burnley tunnel eyes. Yeah, it speaks for itself, doesn't it? God, it still makes me laugh how much everybody was flapping that, this was the end of the front three. and then they leave the pitch and Firmino's in the tunnel just sort of being everybody at that particular moment, or being certainly a large majority of Liverpool supporters. And yeah, just emphasising in one sort of fleeting moment how it was just a big storm in a teacup, and it happens in football. So yeah,
that's brilliant social media work by the club, by the way, because other clubs would have completely not. They wouldn't address it whatsoever. You know what I mean? But the club really sort of they put it out, didn't they, on the Instagram, and they were absolutely fine with it. And obviously, it goes viral. I think that's really clever. Like that's how you sort of stop something from becoming a thing by admitting it was a thing and it's over. I think it was absolutely brilliant by the social media team. That I think
it's
it was really
a normal thing in football. You know, it's like, come on.
Yeah. Or just sort of that was a bit tense, lads. You know what I mean? And then over. That's what, yeah. End of the drought, Ollie, you went for.
I don't think I put the one I originally was going to put in there. I think I made a mistake. So what I was going to go for was an excellent clip of him after the Super Cup when he's walking around looking at the Super Cup, and he's looking at it so admiringly. And then there's a camera shot where you can tell he's just looking at himself. He doesn't actually quite really, he's not bothering the slightest about the Super Cup, but it's so he's kind of checking his teeth. It's a brilliant video where they circle the camera around him. You can just see he's like looking at it like that, and from afar it looks like he's admiring the trophy longingly, but I don't think he's that bothered about the Super Cup.
I went for the Flamengo goal, and it did win the poll with the Twitter users with nearly 50% of the vote. I just think, for all of we've said about the underperformance in front of goal, and yes, he has underperformed, and I think there probably is a conversation to be had this summer, not about replacing him, but just how do we get more out of Roberto Firmino in the end product sort of thing. Because by all means, we all know what he does off the ball, we all know how important the way Liverpool play, but it would also be nice if he added maybe another 10 goals to his tally, or at the very least the goals he should be scoring when he's getting into those positions, and that will be an extra 7 across the league season. So that would have been, huge. I just think it's really important that he's recognised for having that defining moments of scoring the goal, which makes Liverpool world champions, and he does it in the 100th minute of a very emotionally and physically drained game against a very, very tough Brazilian side. Probably the best South American representation I've ever seen, personally. It felt like they could easily be placed. It reminds me of like a Wolves. It was like playing like Wolves in an FA Cup final, which wouldn't be a very enjoyable experience, I don't think. And the fact that he was there 100 minutes in, great bit of skill to send the keeper the wrong way, still nearly somehow misses it, because if you look at it, it touches the keeper's fingertips. But then obviously the celebration and the outpour and everything around it, I was delighted for him, and I think that's Firmino in a nutshell, really. And we'll move on to the most under-discussed story of the season, and this one's really, really close. Dan, you went for the fact that Liverpool won 26 out of the first 27 games. It does exactly what it says on the tin, doesn't it?
It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It won't. If that's seen again, then we are. If that's seen again in our life, we're lucky. 26 out of 27, 26 times that you hear the final whistle go, and you got to do whatever with your night because Liverpool had just got another 3 points, and the other one, by the way, is dogged points at Old Trafford after they've been done on a disgraceful VAR decision. So. Yeah, 26 out of 27. I mean, just speaks for itself, doesn't it? Ridiculous.
Ollie, you went for Joe Gomez's maturation. Is that a word?
Yeah, I think so, right?
Yeah. It is now. You went for him becoming better and older and wiser.
Yeah, he gets so bundled in. I've written about the bunch, bundled in as like Van Dijk's sidekick, and it doesn't matter what he does because he gets bailed out because of Van Dijk and Alisson, and that's always kind of the prism through Liverpool's defensive growth that is shown through. And even if you look at the conversation around England, it's not like this held-on thing. You have this great spine going forward of like Rashford and move back, and then you get to Gomez. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just the Liverpool perspective or creating a straw man, but that he is not seen as like this elite young talent as the next centre half of England for the next decade is beyond me. On the ball, off the ball. I mean, he is such an influential part of the build-up play, and it is completely lost because Alisson and Van Dijk are discussed, and the fullbacks just fall so far down the pecking order. Same way people discuss Gini Wijnaldum being forgotten, the midfield shuttle is being forgotten. I think that the importance of Gomez as being not completely forgotten, but has been undersold, probably more as a national conversation normally.
Definitely. Do you know what? This is probably the closest poll in terms of all three options. So it just goes to show you that there have been a lot of under-discussed stories. The 26 out of 27 wins won it by percent. I went for the fact that Liverpool are world champions. I just find it is almost a forgotten thing that Liverpool flew out to Qatar, took on a really nasty Monterrey side, like a team that you can't really prepare for, and needed a last-minute goal to see that through. And that would have been an absolute disaster. Liverpool losing in the semi-final stage, that would not have been, and it was worrying for a while that could happen. And then the final, as I say, as I said before, with the Firmino goal, Liverpool played probably one of the toughest games of the season. I think it's probably Liverpool's best performance final since. I'm struggling. I think pre-Benitez. Yeah. I genuinely think it's one of the most mature. I think you can put an asterisk next to every final performance over the past, 10, 15 years, but not that one. I think it was the ultimate complete performance. It was tight, yes, and Flamengo had opportunities, but Liverpool just sort of ground them out. And it also somehow managed to do it with the absolute worst referee I've ever seen. Won a competition, or basically was from Qatar. And now he referee, but it's incredible. Most disappointing moments. Mine was nowhere near here, and to be fair, I can understand that. I was a little bit disappointed Liverpool didn't get the 100 points. Not because of all the sort of football banterific stuff that comes with it. More because I just feel like the team have done. I mean, this podcast in itself is proof, really. There's so many great ones, so many great players, so many great things that they've done. I just felt like they deserved another thing on top of finally ending that 30-year wait. And ultimately, when you look at it and you drill it down, all they were was a goal away against Arsenal or Burnley. And I do think pre-lockdown, I think they score one of those, if not both. So that's my disappointment. But this was an interesting one because it was quite well split. Obviously, Dan, you went for Furlow and Staff off the pitch, which I think we'd all agree with.
Yeah, I don't think it's something we should kind of forget. Okay, I understand we all want to move on from it, but you can't just brush it under the carpet and pretend it never happened. And when we've sort of seen the celebrations winning the league and how much the togetherness there is from everyone, I found it an astoundingly bad error of judgment from everyone on one's behalf, and I took a lot of pride in sort of writing and voicing that displeasure. And a big thanks to Liverpool.com for giving me that sort of platform to do so, because I thought it was important. And yet I thought it was right, obviously, for Liverpool to reverse that decision, but it just became probably for me the most disappointing of sort of, I'm not going to say FSG decisions, but club decisions that have been made, and they've sort of backtracked on. And I think that what's important now more than ever is that the club realises that this is a club in its image of a manager, and there is absolutely no way on this earth that he would have been okay with that situation. I'm guessing that he probably just took a back step and might not have even known about it for reasons we discussed earlier. But I am, without him saying anything, I would be as sure as I could be that would be something that he would call, not cool. And I just hope that they kind of think about that before if any situations like that come around in future, that if there's a decision to be made that is in any way, shape or form similar, sort of have a think of, well, what would the manager do? Because he literally the driving force, if not the identity of what a modern day Liverpool should be. And if you're unsure, then go and knock on his door and consult him, because I'm sure he'll give you the right answer. But yeah, it was disappointing. I'm glad it got sorted, and I'm glad we can all, put it behind us.
Bit of a load of questions, Dan, but 50% went for Watford away, which is, absolutely perfectly viable. Compared to 43.3%, and we should say this is only a small sample size, really. On our social media channels. But are you disappointed that more weren't disappointed in the furloughing?
No, it's fine for someone to sort of, in my opinion, take what they need from football. And if people solely want to judge how they view football from what is said on the pitch, then that is perfectly reasonable from them, in my opinion. We aren't here to judge how people view football and whether they should, buy into or cross over an identity of themselves with a football club if they don't want to. There's no sign up for me when you get into this. So if they judge it as Watford, then that's perfectly up to them, because once that 90 minutes is over on a football game, they might say, well, everything I need to take from that particular avenue or that particular investments that I make in that football club I've taken, and I'm not bothered about anything else. So that's fine. But for me, lives mattered and livelihoods mattered, and I think we're already forgetting just how devastating and destructive this pandemic was, both in terms of people's health and economically, and the worry that those employees of Liverpool Football Club went through, even for just a brief period, was legitimate. And people said, they're using a government scheme and the right to do so. And again, you've got an argument for that, but it wasn't in the nature of Liverpool Football Club and what they've been and what they've become. And they for me, those members of staff just deserved to be treated the way that we associate Liverpool Football Club and the club's portrayed. In my opinion, I don't think it was a big ask. And yeah, like I say, if people, aren't invested or bought, that's up to them. It's fine.
I think that's important then to say that, but the club brings that stuff to the fans, whether the fans want to just take on the pitch or not. When you build your marketing around it means more and all that stuff, you bring the next level cultural aspect to the fans, and they are using that history, as I've written so many times, to sell the club, to make it profitable and to sign players in the future. It's not a club that's standoffish with it.
No.
Actively, they try and engage people, not even people locally from the city. They try to engage people around the world to come join our community, and they're bringing it in what now and what evidently a cynical way, because it clearly doesn't. If it gets sent to it's, you'll never walk alone unless the government can help us out a bit. So I think that it's all well and good to say that, and I think it's a valuable point that people should take from it, as you've said many times. Whatever they want to take from this experience, you should be completely and utterly disappointed in that decision, because they bring that stuff to us. They don't let fans try and be a bit removed from just the match day to day. They are constantly driving down your throat to generate cash, that it means more and that you'll never walk alone and all that kind of stuff.
It's well said. It was also crap losing to Watford.
Baz can love out the club, you win some, you lose some.
Don't target Eggsy. I'm Liverpool's number one fan. We'll fall out. I did the opinion it might be quite hard to replace him as a 4-3 centre back, and I think World War III started. We're coming to the end nearly, so just really run this quickly. Dalglish Wenger Memorial Feud of the Year. Mane and Salah came second. Henderson Tom Davis was in third.
That was niche by me.
That was a what?
That was niche by me, but it carried me a lot, honestly. When two people are saying something really personal to each other but smiling as they're doing it, it's bad. It's the worst possible things that are being said when they're smiling doing it. So yeah.
And speaking of Needle, Andy Needle Robertson If we were going with the nicknames that we were talking about at the top of the show, I couldn't really pick one, but it was basically Robbo versus the Wales, and that's the overwhelming winner with Twitter votes. I
made that no one could bother with Frankie Lamps, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I made that.
Yeah. Let's not start another Chelsea rivalry on the back of a manager being an absolute whinge bag. Ultimately, it was almost a shame to see them get Champions League, but there we go. I'm very interested in what this code is that he talks about. Just put it that way.
Oh God, I know.
And then, so the final category was the big one. The Oscar goes for MVP. I suppose it's an Oscar. It's also best actor. I don't know why I'm carrying on with this Oscar sort of. It is absolutely perfect. Sports have awards as well. They're called MVP awards. So, yeah. In third place, Dan, you went for Pepper Linders. Do you want to just sort of explain a little bit why?
I think he's just become invaluable. His interviews, his energy, his tactical awareness, what he brings, I'm just fascinated by him. I'm slowly becoming fascinated by him. I think he is quietly, not to underdo Klopp or any of his staff in any way, but he's turning the wheel like nobody else. And sort of the enthusiasm he has for life, I just think I think you can sort of attribute a lot of the last 2 years to him coming back to the club. And that's not to say he'll ever be a brilliant manager or he should be next in line if and when Klopp leaves, but he's so valuable to this football club now, and I just hope he stays for a long time. So he was mine.
I think you can probably actually correlate Liverpool becoming real. I mean, there's a lot of factors, obviously, but ultimately, this new Liverpool sort of coincides with Pepperlin coming back into the fold.
Yeah, and the tactical evolutions from that, the tactical evolution that comes from that, the high line, the advance of the fullbacks, the manner in which we are able to sort of control games now and sort of play so much with so much variance. Like I say, he's a tactical sort of, I don't know, he's a tactical genius for once for many words. He's got so much to his locker. He's got so much invested in sort of different ways to play, and like I say, the energy he brings to the club and the setup, next level for me.
I'll give the MVP to anybody who wants to go on Twitter and says it's missing Buvac. And it's sort of going through those tweets from the end of from sort of towards the end of 2018. I think Liverpool drew at Chelsea once, and it would have happened if Buvac was sitting there.
Don't scroll through my timeline around that period.
Incredible. Ollie, you went for Trent. 27.5% of the votes.
Yeah, it's almost embarrassing that we're sat here doing this, and there's no Salah, there's no Van Dijk. We've got this, but there's no Klopp, and it's a good evening. I just think Trent, it's
won enough. Klopp, it's fine.
Yeah, he's won enough. He's just so unique, and I think that we had a piece in the set the other day about Trent not just being great for a 21-year-old, not just being great for right back, would be a great period. I mean, I think it can get undersold because of him being a local lad that this is not anywhere near the norm. This is to do this at this age, to be sharing these assist records in the manner he's doing it. He's not only just, it's not like this lad arrived and he's, you can find corollaries for Steven Gerrard, you can find them for Jamie Carragher. This is a lad who has completely shattered the mold. He is changing position in a way people will be hunting for now for the next 25 years. How do we get a Trent? I want one of them. And it'll be people in Argentina. It'll be in the Uruguayan second division. I want my right back to be my creator because look at how much it opens the rest of the pitch. And I want these switches between my right and left back. He is a complete pioneer of a new position, which sounds hyperbolic, but when you just look at where he does his damage from on the pitch, there hasn't been another player from that position do it in the modern game. So to me, you cannot unsell how impossible that was at the start of the year for people to just prepare for. And then as people tried to man mark, the United came to Anfield, tried to man mark him out the game and double up on him in his own half, and it made not a single bit of difference. 3 weeks later, after 3 teams had tried it in a row, they all said, yeah, bin that. He's too good for that. You have an unmarkable right back who's the most creative player in your team. It's staggering. The only near comparison would be Alves, but then the stylistic elements were so different.
I also think about Trent, and this can't be undersold enough. Sure, people say, oh, could he do a little bit better defensively? But he's an above average defender for me. Mm-hmm. It's not like every single goal is conceded down Liverpool's right-hand side, and it's a clear weakness that you want to exploit. Yes, he's had a couple of problems here and there. Definitely post-locked as well against some really difficult opponents. But,
I think he actually. Sorry, Chris, go on.
I was going to say this is the same guy who's kept Ronaldo quiet, or quiet enough in the Champions League final. This is a guy who's kept up with Leroy Sané. Zaha pretty much absolutely kills Liverpool every time he plays, but Trent's pretty much got the better of him now. I can't believe I just put Zaha with Sam and Ronaldo. He's a good defender as well. It's a generational package.
I was just about to say, I think he defends in a much more conventional sense than Robertson. Like I think he sort of goes one-on-one with a winger, jockey, shows him down the line, uses his body really well. Whereas Robertson is much more adept to sort of defending high and looking to press and looking to intercept the first ball. He's a lot more right front-footed, and it's good as well. But I think Trent's much more sort of comfortable in saying, you can have a run at me. You can either go inside and I've got midfielders there, or you can have a go down the line. And like you say, he's done perfect with the likes of Sané going back 2 years. So I think he doesn't get I don't get the kind of sort of, he's not a good angle. And people often say teams target him. I don't think they do. I think they just know that they're not going to get any time on the ball at all down the other side. Because Mane treks back, and Robertson, like I say, is very front foot. So you're not making any head down that side of the pitch when they break those lines, which is a really dangerous game. But the other side, Salah tucks in, he's a lot more central. And then Trent, like I say, he's willing to let you run. So I think that's more of where that sort of argument stems.
He's also 21. So, he has plenty of time to get better. He's already added so much to his game. His game is already so diverse. And you look at the greatest athletes of all time, they always bang on about in the offseason, add one more thing to my game, add this to my game, find that, do that. Going forward, it's complete, So what's he going to do for the next 8-9 years? Ideally, if he wants to become an all-around player, unless it's moving to midfield, will be to master that side of the game.
I think he goes down as one of the Liverpool greats. He's already well on his way, but as you say, 21. It's incredible, and what he's done this season. We have a piece today on Liverpool around sort of his chance creation, and he's up there with the likes of Messi and De Bruyne, and it's absolutely incredible. He's 21 and he's a fullback. Yes, he plays basically as a midfielder, but he's a fullback. The winner, however, according to Twitter at least, is Sadio Mane. This was the player I picked, so I'll just sort of run through my thoughts, and then we sort of share and wrap up. But I honestly think there's a particular skill or a particular movement that he does nowadays, which is just incredible, and it's that one where he's sort of his own half, probably just slightly above and beyond the 18-yard box, and he'll collect the ball, and sort of with one movement, with the outside of his boot, he'll just nudge it past the player, and he's gone. And the whole pitch opens up then, and it's absolutely incredible. It takes 2 or 3 plays out the game, and it just gives Liverpool the chance to counter-attack and transition. I don't think there's a best player in world football who transitions the way he does, or transitions as well as he does. I think it's incredible. He'll happily pick up a ball sort of on the touchline, let's say 40 yards from his own goal. He'll sort of pick up a quick pass from Robertson, and he'll worm his way out of it. He'll use his body as a shield. He'll sort of power past. He'll sort of drop his shoulder and weave round. However he gets away from his marker, and the chance is there, and Liverpool are on the attack again. I think what he does and the player that he's become in the past couple of years is incredible. There was a time, not too long, even under Klopp, when personally thought he might have been the weak link of the front three, and this is sort of going back at the start of 17-18. He just come back from injury. He'd had a couple of really difficult games. I think Klopp even took the team for a while because he was struggling a little bit. And then he scores a goal against Burnley on, I think it was New Year's Day, and everything changes for him. And he's never really looked back since. I'd be really interested to see what happened in sort of 2-month spell when Klopp takes him out and what was getting worked on at Melwood, because I think that was probably the time when he became the player that we see today.
I think he's the best player the Premier League has seen, alongside probably Ronaldo and Robin, at speed. And being so comfortable at running at top speed, where he can move with subtle movements at full pace of defense. There's just nothing you can't move as fast as him, but he knows what he's doing, whereas you have no idea what he's going to do. I mean, I wrote a piece a while back comparing him to Ronaldo, and I meant the United Ronaldo, really the guy who ran at speed, plus the body shape and the way he can just contort in the air and things of that nature. But he's just frighteningly fast whilst being controlled. You talked before about Jones's controlled arrogance. There is a controlled speed with him that is just unlike anything. Even Salah will have moments where there's almost a bit of panic when he's at speed and he runs out of time and he has to hurry his feet. There's so little of that with Mane, and that's where you get that transitional stuff where he can just think pace and his legs can keep up with it, and it's impossible to even understand how he can do that physically. It doesn't make much sense to me.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add to that is, we talk about leaders in this squad. He's a bigger captain as Henderson, and he's a bigger leader as Van Dijk. He's a bigger leader as Milner. He is. I think you had a look at his goals, Chris, didn't you, the other day? And what his goals have done in terms of winning games for Liverpool or turning draws into wins. That is no accident. That how many times have we seen him sort of pick up the mantle? And if it is just by taking the ball, dropping the shoulder, sort of injecting the pool up 5-10%, he's done that constantly. And his leadership on the pitch is absolutely astounding. He is next level footballer. Like Everton at home sticks out for me in the league. That he's the only one at the front three that starts that night, but he is by far and away sort of the best performer on the pitch by a mile. And it's easy for some players when they're not playing around, the mates and stuff, the usual teammates to go out, I don't fancy this, and I might just not have it. He's become a phenomenal leader for this team. Unbelievable. Sadio
Mane, I mean, this is last season, not this season, but Sadio Mane doesn't score or assist a goal in the Barcelona 4-0. He's ultimately probably man of the match.
Yeah,
because of what he does, and that just sort of shows you the type of, he's not an attacker. And I'm going to move on to this really quickly, but he's not the type of attacker who only deals in goal and assists. He does so much more. As I was talking about the transition, I think he's got the right level of snide about him. I think sort of he isn't scared to get involved in a little bit of needle. I love that smirk that he flashes when he sort of he's got the better of a defender, and they've been resourced to foul him. So Mane's longest batting spell in terms of goal scoring this season is 3 games. Only once this season has he done 3 games without a goal, and the third game of that streak was away to Wolves, and he was withdrawn after 33 minutes due to injury. After that, he has 4 games all league season, back-to-back blanks. So to put that into a bit more, more clarity, he's scored in 17 of the 36 games he's played in, and 9 of those have been pivotal in picking up 3 points. So in 8 of those games, he scored 1 goal in a 1-goal win, and he scored 2 goals in a 3-1 win over Newcastle at Anfield in this September. So basically what that means for me is if he doesn't score in those 9 games, and we all know how domino effect and the butterfly effect and all of that, we don't know how the games will go anyway, but let's look at it really simplistically. If he doesn't score in those 9 games, those 9 wins become draws, which means that Liverpool get 18 points fewer, and Manchester City finished 18 points behind Liverpool. So if that's not a title winning sort of output, I don't know what is. It's literally, if Sadio Mane doesn't exist, Liverpool are 18 points worse off and don't win the Premier League.
It is just madness that you can have a category like this and you can leave out Van Dijk, Alisson, Salah, Henderson, who won Footballer of the Year. It's just, the squad assembly is just madness.
Yeah, it's incredible. They are unbelievable, unprecedented times. Certainly of our generation, we obviously had the 70s and 80s, but ultimately there wasn't a Liverpool.com podcast back then. Which is probably, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Sounds like an off-season project, an electric rewind podcast. Go week in 78 and let's go.
Liverpool on Metro. Maybe we'll look at that. We can argue on McDermott and Keegan.
Just me slaughtering a 13-year-old Pep Guardiola.
He'll never hit him. It's like his alien a little bit as well, I can. Ollie, I believe you had a game that you wanted to play, but we'll save that till next week. We've run very long. Yeah, it's actually your off, Ollie. Dan's zone here. So we'll wrap it up there. Please, make sure that you're giving us a like, giving us a subscribe on the Blood Red channel. If you're on YouTube, make sure you leave a comment and tell exactly what you think about these awards. Make sure you leave a review as well. It's always nice to know that what we're doing is appreciated. So thank you very much this week for joining us. We'll be back next week when we can play all the game and all sorts of other fun stuff as well. So from me, Kristian Walsh, not the boss man, from Ollie Connolly, from Dan Morgan, thank you very much. Take care and enjoy your weekend.